This has been requested. Cyberzoni and Lisa from Kansas City in the house. You're going to have to pop in with this live stream too, because you're a child of probably the same generation. This was a request, I think, from official CPA. Wanted me to discuss a couple months ago, I think, brought it up. What are relationships like in the 80s and 90s versus today? So I figured, heck, I got a little time to kill today. Why not we talk about it? What was the reality back in the mid 80s? Well, yeah, could I have been 13 back then? And in the early 90s, Timmy Kramer in the house. In the late 80s, I'd have a chick over, but would never let her stay the night. Gave them a bottle of water and a candy bar for the road. I've been Red Bulls. That's funny. I guess I should talk about my first girlfriend. Her name was Gina. And I was about 14, and she was a little bit younger. And it was a little, it was the first time I kissed a girl in 1984, I think, or 85. And all we did was suck face. That's it. And we hung out for 2-3 weeks, and then her parents found out, and that was it. And then we'd meet out at, there was a lot of dances in those days. So we'd go out and we'd go to dances on the weekend. That's where we met chicks, right? Or we'd meet chicks at the school or what have you, Friday and Saturday nights, people hung out at the local Round Table Pizza or McDonald's. And you met people that way. Or someone would have a party and so forth. But we are Generation X. What's up, Safe Haven? So the reality was, it was a lot different dating. People had girlfriend and boyfriends that actually lasted. I could tell you that there are still couples today that I went to high school, junior high with that are still together. They actually got married. Now, whether they're happy or not, or they've been faithful is a different story, but there's a ton of relationships, especially the girlfriend that I had when I was a junior. Her name was Allison, and she was a year younger than me, and we dated 2 times. In fact, she came back to me. She broke up with me. She went on like a mission trip, broke up with me, and then I became a senior when she started dating this total friggin' simp. And then as a senior, I was skateboarding more, hitting more contests, and I was getting, a little bit more notoriety and so forth. And then I started dating this other girl named Tasha Stevens. And she found out about it, and Tasha was gorgeous from the other high school. And the reality was, she found out. She came back in 1989 after she broke up with me. When I say exes come back, that was the first time she ever came back. That I experienced an ex coming back. In fact, she came back not once, but 2 times. And because I was dating a better option than her, and she knew about it, and that anxiety and competition set in. She came back. I broke up with Tasha. Me and Allison hung out. We didn't really date that much, but we hung out. I always liked her. And then I went to college. And that's the reality, right? It was And we hung out all the time. It was so different back then. Relationships weren't disposable. Carl in the house, Gen X here, a time when you could have found a decent woman back in the 90s. But now, good friggin' luck. Well said, brother. Elias Antonio de la Huerta, good to see you too. We're spewing some facts here. First guy gets 100% pair bond. Recon plane will find them. I'm telling you, back then, yeah, house parties were fun too. They are totally rare. Every weekend, someone would have like, and we'd be playing the record. Like I remember when Van Halen came out and 1984 Jump, there'd be parties down the street. The kid would have a record player playing that. There'd be girls there, guys there. And back then, guys and girls chatted. Versus today, even when my kid, when we were, 7, 8 years ago, my daughter was 13. Boys and girls would come to the house and the boys would not talk to the girls. There'd be like one guy that would talk and everybody would be all like in their corner doing their own thing. But back then in the 80s, people actually communicated. That's how you talk. When you went to school and had a girlfriend, I don't know if anybody else felt like this, but you left on Friday. You got on the bus at 2:30. We didn't even have call waiting back then. It was busy signals. In fact, to call long distance cost money. So you had to wait till Monday, unless some rare chance you could see your girlfriend, Monday till school. And you get on the bus, and my girlfriend, Allison, would always give me a note. Don't read it till you get home. It'd be this big, thick note, 100 pages, and all about her expressing her love for me and how much she liked hanging out. We hung out and experiences. And that's what it was like. And then you built a muscle for 72 hours. You could live without her, without instant gratification. And then you got back on Monday and you were so excited to see each other. And that's how relationships went, right? Sound engineers in the house all the way from Europe. I think I got you. I wanted to do this for our brothers over in Eastern Europe so you could pipe in as well. Hello to you, my brother. Now that religion, morals, social shame, and girl power movement and social media have taken priority, the only recourse for men is to have competition anxiety to keep their woman in check. That's what I had back then, right? It was great. House parties, ding dong dash, teepee houses, dish soap and soda fountains. Hell yeah. See, she knows what up. But the girls all sprayed Aquanet. They all had big hair. Can't Buy Me Love was a big, big film. Breakfast Club, Say Anything, Pretty in Pink. I mean, there were relationships, and there was it was a lot more difficult to get attention. Now, attention was still part of female nature. There was attention between women and so forth, but not as bad as today. Not as bad. So I started dating my first girl in 1985. I had a couple girlfriends in high school. I actually had a couple relationships. And some lasted. When I was a sophomore, my girlfriend was a senior. She graduated and that was the first time I spoke about this one time. She left town and moved 3 hours away. It was the first time I ever got ghosted. And there was no one even know the term. One day she's gone. She's checked out of her mom moved. Her and her mom moved. Couldn't even find them. And then 6 months later, she wrote me a letter. She said she had to move and she just had to ignore me or she'd be sad. It was the weirdest thing. But I went on with my life and met a couple other gals, and I was skateboarding a lot and meeting girls at competitions and things like that. But the reality is things were a lot different. They were smoother. They were easier. You could actually have a girlfriend, or a girl could have a boyfriend that for the most part, cheating and infidelity wasn't part of it, or monkey branching very quickly. Now, there was some of that, but not as bad. People seemed to be more committed back then. Would you agree with me? But now that's only regulated to the top 10% of men. Going to be a lot of lonely post-wall cat ladies. Well said. Sherman Smith, proud to be a member, proud to have you in the congregation. Your videos ground me in this difficult time of my life. My soon-to-be ex-wife is effing with me, and I'm just going to ignore it. No attention. You're always welcome to send me an email, Sherman, or if you want to get on the phone, chat about it, I'm more than happy to get you through it. We could chat. But you hang in there. Mr. Gray is in the house. Great to see you. Glamour shots. Glamour shots in the malls. Remember, go and get your glamour shots. How about the yearbook pictures? My parents always had me get professional pictures. I was in I looked really good instead of the school pictures that had the same background and everybody wore rugby shirts. I always had to wear like a tie and stuff. But yeah, glamour shots. Pretzel maker. How did you find this channel and why are you on here? Voyeuristic pleasure or self-help actualization? Yeah, I'd like to know how Lisa found the channel too. It's 10 o'clock here. Good for you. Well, you can at least hang out for a half hour or so. But that's the reality. Relationships back then could work. There was nothing to compete against outside of the girl on the soccer team that was dating the guy and there was competition anxiety there. Or a neighbor, someone from a different high school that liked your girlfriend, and they had met at a party, a year ago or whatnot, or an after school football game, out in the parking lot from the neighboring high school. But there wasn't a lot of, shenanigans. It was an easier time. In fact, when I met my ex-wife, I met her in 1996, and we dated. There was no jealousy, infidelity, looking for attention. She was all in me. We made dinner every night. We'd hang out on the weekends. We'd go camping. We really enjoyed being around each other. And I think today people don't like to hang out with each other as much as they once did. It was a different world. We didn't have cell phones. My first cell phone I got in 1999 or 2000, and it was an audio Vox. And we shared 300 minutes between us because we'd been married 3 months, and we just bought them for potential safety reasons. They were not what they are today. They were basically security and safety if you're out somewhere, right? But things were easier. I was too busy in the 80s to date. I should have kept that mindset. I was too busy in the date. Well, when I was in Scouts, I worked, I had a girlfriend. I still went to school. There were no computers. I still got good grades. I still bought my first car. I still paid for everything. And kids today are complaining that they don't have money. They can't do this. It's too difficult. Go back to when you didn't have any of this technology. I mean, people that bought computers back in the 80s were nerds, or people just, tinkering people. No one really worked with. I started working with the computer in college. I remember it was Word 3.1. I had no idea how to even open a word processing sheet. I'd always have to ask the attendant in the lab to help me. I didn't even know how to work it. I could work the keyboard. That's it. So it was a lot different. Time went slower. Brad, did you read the article where Sweden is doing a government study as to why men aren't marrying Swedish women, but instead going to Southeast Asia? I probably wouldn't have to read that. I probably figured it out by myself, Carl. But I'm assuming Swedish men aren't into Swedish women that are all princesses, right? Or the amount of the reality of relationships lasting in Sweden are slim to none. I turned 21 in Paris in 86, hung out in Europe for a month. Attaboy. Timmy Kramer, laying it out of Chinatown. That's the reality, man. He's out seeing the world. He learned before everybody knew all this crap. 35 years ago, Timmy Kramer. Lisa Smith, I love the manosphere. My dad raised me in reality. I know my place. If I need to stay in my lane, Rad will let me know. You've always been fine. There are decent women out there, but it's very rare. I'm going to give it a 1% to 2%, and 98% are not worth it. And so when my videos are talking about women in general, that they're monkey branchers or hypergamous, I do believe that 98% of women fit in that category. There are some decent women that even come to this channel that I've had conversations with that to me are pretty rare. My first phone for a work cost me $2,100. The bill was always $500 a month. Oh, geez. Those days of the old phones. Remember the old brick phones with Gordon Gekko? Supposedly a couple years ago, they were bringing those back, but we'll see. I assume you're married and your husband knows his role as well as you. If so, kudos, you're an anomaly today. I would agree. There are women that still know their place in society. The only issue I would have would be, again, raised by a strong father, respects the father, that'll go a long way in today's world. However, there's so much competition, there's so much attention, there's so much technology chaos that could not. I knew a really good gal who was raised by a wonderful family, a strong man, and she monkey branched in hypergamy, and she followed the whole, rhyme and reason of today's society, where, hey, she could do better without that boring husband. Well, she tried, it didn't work, and now she's bitching and moaning she should have never have left him, but that guy went off and remarried, and now he's happy, and she's, again, post-wall. Look, she just bought a puppy, drinks like a fish. So we all got to be careful. Even men. Men that understand this sort of philosophy still need to be careful about reality. If you do not put yourself first, somebody else will be. When somebody else is first, you suffer because you're not on your purpose. It's really that simple. That is why chasing a woman does not work out 99.9% of the time, because you are putting somebody else as the director of your movie. You are the director, and it's as simple as that. If you are not the director, somebody else will direct your movie, and you will suffer, and you will have heartache, and you will be angry, and blah, 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 blah. The whole purpose of these channels is to help men improve their lives by saying, I've got to have a purpose, and I've got to figure out what life can bring to me and I can bring to life. And hopefully, if a woman pops in, is complimentary and stands by your man, and as simple as that. But the reality is, not a lot of women fit in that category. And that's not some speculation, that's truth. Because if relationships with women and men really, really could work, the amount of divorces would be extremely low. If love could fix everything, then everybody would still be married. Carl, me, John Boston, everybody. Timmy never got married, but he could have been in a relationship. So that's the reality. Marcella N. in the house. Happy late Father's Day. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your day. I did. Went to In-N-Out Burger in Centerville with the boys, and it was great. But anyhow, so I know you're younger, Marcella, but back in the 80s, life was a different world. You had to physically go and talk to a girl. I'll tell you, the first time I was at a dance, I was 14 years old. Went to a dance, and there was a girl. Her name was, huge hair. Oh, what the hell was her name? Oh, gosh, dang, why is it slipping me? Anyhow, I mustered up the Stephanie. I mustered up the courage, and I had some glasses on. I had glasses, big old glasses. Mustered up the courage to go ask her to dance, and she rejected me. Oh, it sucked. And I went, and I was so pissed. But I was young. I didn't know anything. And then I went and asked this other girl, and it was fine. But, oh, geez, she rejected. Tracy Barker, that's her name. She rejected me with her big hair. But you had to physically go and talk to people. Simple as that. Go up, ask them, be cheese ball, whatever, but that's what you had to do. Now, all you have to do is open your 3x5 microprocessor that fits in your pocket, and you have a myriad of potential swipes, but those swiping back on you or even replying is a shit show as well. So that is the reality. Rejection was in person then, and rejection now is in your palm of the hand. JT, good to see you, brother. My buddy who spent 3 years in prison for his stripper baby mama is right back to his old trips. I'm betting big trouble in his future. 49 broke, mowing yards. Jeez. He's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. Park Ridge in the house. What are the dating options for a man who is 45? Please help. Good question. I would say join a couple of groups that you like to do. If you like to hike, join a hiking club. There's lots of ladies and men in the hiking club. Kayaking club. meetups, bicycle. I cycle. I could get on a ton of different mountain bike clubs, but I don't like to ride with people except one guy, my good friend. But even if you're going to get your car worked on at like the shop, like say the tires are getting rotated and whatnot, it takes an hour. There's gals you can meet there that are getting their cars serviced. You typically on a Saturday. Got a couple friends that met some gals that way. The dating world and the dating apps is going to be very difficult. I think the only one really where you might have a slim chance of success would be Match.com, because people pay for it. So they're a little bit more inclined to meet people. However, I don't think that works very well either. I think it's the same women on those apps too, but you never know. Best is to, if you've got friends that are single or are dating gals and those gals have friends, that's a good way. Hey, an introduction, a double date. But there's no silver bullet out there, a quick fix on how to date. It's a different world we live in, and especially for you, 45, dating a 30-year-old is probably where you want to be, 30, 35. Kids involved typically, maybe divorce. But it's a lot different. I don't have a silver bullet. I would say do what you love and join a club that likes to do that, and maybe you'll meet someone else that likes to do what you do. Other than that, stay on your purpose and let someone just pop in your orbit. Don't seek it. If you chase and seek a relationship or to date, and there's a subconscious thirst that comes through your personality. I hope you're sharing that knowledge with your children. If you have any young boys particularly need to know this information, be glad to hear you're awoke and aware. Yes. Junior high school mixers, I remember those. Hell yeah. Women have too many options today. Yes, they do. Back then they didn't. In the 80s, they didn't. You could literally have a girlfriend and it could last a year and a half easily. Peter Parker, for you young guys, all you have to do is chase excellence and purpose. FJT in the house. Crypto's holding us down. I'm still in a good mood. Don't worry about crypto. It's not going anywhere. It's just part of the market dynamics. These women get hundreds of likes and messages a day. They do. Guys, every gal I've gone out with, I say, let me just show me your phone of how many messages. 4, 5, 600 messages. 3,000 likes. And they're not 9s. Maybe 6s, 6.5, 7s. And they've got so much attention. It's just the reality we live in. Be attractive and have good social media, you young guys. Yeah, and even then, you got to compete with everybody else. I always say the best competition is no competition. In other words, most people are meeting on dating apps, 99%. Be the 1% that meets in person, because now you met in a personal space where they have now connected your name and your voice and your character all in one package, versus they can't do that on a dating app. Marcella M., if you would have asked me to dance, I would have said yes. Oh, what a sweetheart. That would have been great. Meeting a gal this Thursday for coffee. Wish me luck. Good. Just be yourself. Don't act thirsty. Stay on purpose and enjoy the reality of meeting someone. I have no problem on going on dates and meeting others and talking and seeing life up front and personal. You have to go in with the mindset that you don't need anybody. You better accept yourself. When guys literally, and I've heard this from women, and maybe Marcella can pop up and say what she thinks, but there's guys that supposedly go on first dates and they start future planning 10 minutes into the date with the girl. And that drives the girl completely away. Jake Rick, I've been waiting to catch a live one. Last one I joined was about never taking X back. You're right. My ex came back, both of them. I took one back and she did the same shizzle. Never again, I swear. Remember, a tiger does not change its stripes. Good to have you. I don't golf with them anymore. The stripper sold his clubs. Isn't that crazy? My 21-year-old son thinks he knows it all, Carl, just like we all did, right? Well, at least their mother is not one of these mothers that runs around and acts like she's 22 and competes with her 18-year-old daughter like many women today. They're not mothers. They're BFFs with their kids. Not good. So applaud Lisa. Good luck at the job interview, says Carl to Gare. Women speak logically and act emotionally. Enough said. Red Pill Truth Bomb. AI Transform is in the house. Hopefully your husband can talk to him about the perils of relationships. I wish my dad told me this, but he was a boomer tradcon. I tell my boys exactly, if they're interested, find out the relationship they have with their father, see what the mother's like, how addicted are they to social media, and begin to filter that way. Hopefully that helps, Park Ridge. But if you're on your purpose and your game and you put yourself first, I'm sure someone will pop in somehow, somewhere. Just don't seek it. When you chase something, it runs away from you. Remember that. You chase a woman, they know it. If you chase love, you know, and all that security stuff, you just chase excellence and chase yourself. AI Transform, I'm doing great today, brother. I hope you're doing well. Always great to have you. The gal I'm meeting sent me screenshots of another guy trying to get a date with her. He came across very desperate, begging her for a date. We haven't even met, and this is already happening. Again, men are very thirsty. Be the 1% that has no competition. You don't do anything that guy. I guarantee that guy's sending her emojis. Landwells knew their place before technology. Yes, they did. Very well said, MGTOW Absolute Knowledge. Oh my gosh, back in high school, there was a couple gals, and they, you know, for the most part, most girls were pretty fit back then. There was like 2 or 3 really heavy 300-pound girls, and they knew their place. You're 100% right with that. They knew their place. They kind of just stuck to themselves because nobody was after that. However, today, now they are considered princesses. And somebody is tapping them. My first fancy vehicle was a new Chevy Blazer. I remember that 88 Blazer. My neighbor got one. Back then, I made payments and hated that part. Bought my first house at 19. That is impossible today, 100%. How much you pay for your Blazer? My parents came from the silent generation, born in mid-late 30s. Definitely not influenced by the 60s free love thing. Well, they probably got married back then to build something. I doubt if love was part of love might have been on the equation, but they were probably looking at each other as potential partners to build a family. And eventually love probably popped in. Who knows? But I just think back, my grandparents, they didn't really love each other. I mean, they didn't get together they didn't fall in love to get married. They got married to build a family. And then the love came. That's why they stuck through it. They had a common goal to build something. It wasn't based on dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Which, if you're going to base a marriage on falling in love, it's very risky in today's world. Very, very risky. Because dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin wear off very quickly. FJT, it's not just the dating apps. They also meet men through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Men from around the world are willing to even take a flight to see these women. It's so sad. I heard about some dude flying all the way from Asia to meet some chick in California. And the moment he got there, she ran out and he never saw her again. He'd been giving her money. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it seriously is. Isn't that right, FJT? And how many gals have asked you to fly to see them and you give them the old NO? Hello from Austria, Ali E. I like your channel. Keep it up. How are the Austrian women? Good to have you. Ghost Princesses in the house. I've always been curious about relationships in the 80s and 90s. It was easier. It was easy. Oh my gosh. It was a lot funner. I remember I did this creative date back in those early goofball days, and my buddy had this. We got a generator, and I brought my old TV, the TV weighed like 300 pounds, an old VCR, and I bought a pizza and some soda pop, and we watched a movie in the middle of a field with a generator. Oh, she thought that was the greatest thing. And that was before you could just watch, on your cell phone in a car somewhere. I actually had to bring the stinking TV. I set it up beforehand, and it was like, I think we watched Man from Snowy River, some cheeseball movie like that. Had pizza, laid on we probably hardly watched the movie, but it was the whole act, and we made out and so forth. But that's what we did. How do you feel about this? I'm still sleeping with one of the two exes that came back, but I have no attachment, no feelings at all, just lust. Should I continue to indulge in that? You know what? You do whatever makes you feel happy. As long as you know what you're involved with, go from there. But I would probably not, make this a long-term deal. Probably could have some implications. Lone wolf, imagine thinking woman is yours while she gets 50 guys chasing her on social media. That's today's world. That's the world we live in today. Fantastic way to get shot, not advocating violence, just saying bitches be crazy. Dude, yes, there are some craziness. Jedi Dark Force, these days we as men and women are just using each other. I remember grandparents' marriage, both were committed to work hard, support each other, and build. Today these traits are gone forever. Yes. Well said, Jedi Dark Force. Well said. What's creepy is now massively fat women over 300 pounds. They can find a guy that's into that online. No healthy improvement on life. Find a mate and repair the body. Only heart attacks and sin. Well said, Ghost Princess. That we live in a world it's a pool of promiscuity. A deep, deep pool. And you can swim wherever you want. There's so much of it. Guessing I paid $27K as it was loaded full. Geez, payments and debt are evil. I wonder what the percentage on that car was back then. 8%? But those Blazers, that 88 Blazers, worth some money today. You should have kept it. Even in 2007, when Facebook was new, you could just poke random women and have fun conversations without it being weird. Yeah, and I think Facebook's a joke. Come on, people post, who gives a F about that? Every now and again there might be a neat story. I don't have it, but I used to back in the day. Haven't had it for 7-8 years. It's a waste of time. And it's just kind of weird. Now, for families that only communicate because of that, brothers, sisters, cousins, so I don't have a problem with that. But when you're trying to show everyone how great your life is, but it truly sucks ass, yeah. We all know who's posing. We all know the posers on social media. Very well said, Peter. Sub 7 chicks acting nice and throwing the peace league before smartphone and internet. Yeah, you're absolutely right. North South, back in high school in the 90s, a girl you dated and you actually contemplated marriage. You actually worked through things in the 80s. And you did fun. You had to get out and do things. And we didn't hang out with our stinking parents. We went out, we did things, we went, a lot of times we were skateboarding, we just have gals meet us or our girlfriends. Hey, we're going to be at the local Safeway, which is a grocery store. Let's just grab some nachos, hang out in the front. We'll skate for 2 hours, listen to Guns N' Roses or Motley Crue. We'll go make out, and then we'll skate again. We'll make out, and then go home. And the chicks would be all giggly gaggly. Oh my gosh, he's so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And they talk, girl gossip, and then we'd all hang out. Or we'd go find some abandoned pool at a house, and we just set up shop there or do something and just have fun. You literally had to find things to do. And that was the whole fun of it. Men were creating and planning and paying for date back in the 80s, and nothing has changed. Fast forward to now, gender equality, my ass. Well said, Timmy. Lone Wolf, 90s were the best decade. 90s had some good stuff. For me, it was the 80s. I love the 80s. 84, I probably remember 83 till 90. There's some good stuff. But 90s were great too. Take risks to find your purpose, but not to complete yourself with someone. Sound advice by sound engineer all the way in Eastern Europe. Always appreciate your comments, sound engineer. Speak well and definitely convey your thoughts very well in English. Better than most Americans. Dating app, social media has ascended the land whale. Yes. The land whale is now a beautiful princess. There's no such thing as land whale. That's right, Rad. So many women ask me to visit them in their country. I tell them, no, come see me on your dime. They always say, I don't have the money. And I say, neither do I. Love it. Happy Father's Day, Rad. You seem like a rad dad. Now we have fun. You know, I'm tough on my boys because I don't want them to go through what their father went through. You have to check them in reality and say, look, just because that chick likes you doesn't mean you're the only one. You've got to literally believe there's 50 other dudes orbiting her at any given moment. And if you know that, you have better odds of keeping your heart intact and finding and vetting for a potential 1 to 2%er. And I tell them there's 1 to 2% women that are worth it today. Back in the 80s and 90s, 50% were worth it. Maybe even more. But thanks, brother. Facebook sucks. Avoid those beta males and women there. Tons of them, tons of them, tons of them. I use Facebook as a cloud for family and document my business with my kids and pigs. Yeah, well, you're using it as a utility. You're not using it as it being a poser and showing everyone how happy. You know, guys that use Facebook to demonstrate how great their life is, I don't think that's a very strong quality. Because if they're doing that, I mean, hey, if you post one picture every 6 months, what big deal? But if you're doing it like I got a friend that does it every day. You're thinking you're not on your purpose. You know, who's got time for that? But you're right, North South. Use it for family and work and documenting visits. One person I know worked with fat people to help them lose weight. Personal trainer type, and they said that men lose weight easier, not because of biology, because of psychology. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a psychological component and a biology component as well. I just think men are we're a little bit more determined at times to lose weight. My best advice for losing weight is intermittent fasting and exercise, whether that's walking, lifting weights, or whatever. If you combine those two, intermittent fasting is fine on itself, but you're going to have more bang for the buck if you combine it with exercise, especially weightlifting. The women have no reason to lose weight, according to them. They don't, because some guy's going to get with them. I was at a place in Salt Lake, Marcella probably knows, and I saw this very, very heavy-set woman, and she didn't really have a pretty face. I've seen very heavy women with pretty faces, but she didn't have she was with a guy that was like 6'2". This guy, if I didn't know, I would figure, he was a pretty solid, successful guy. He was all doting over her. It was the weirdest thing. I kind of people watched the whole time, just going, what does he see in her? But then again, there's that movie Shallow Hal. So go for it. Too easy to find a mate. Pair bonding was a thing before Tinder and Instagram. 100%. 100%. We should just ban mass social media off the internet. I would take the hit to my internet accounts if it meant women and men would lose weight and lose contact with land whale hunters. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Think of the children we can't have because social media makes our women fat. Think of the children, people. Yeah? The whole society is crumbling because of social media. These women get 50 to 400 orbiters apiece. Yes, they do. If not more. That's crazy. In the 80s and 90s, it was 50% of women. Even then, it was really, really low. Does anybody know why? Was it the movie industry or TV making women difficult and sexualized and damaged? Well, there was no Oprah in 1985. Well, she was just beginning. It was like Phil Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael and Jenny Jones. Well, I think they were early 90s. But there was no feminism wasn't really gaining traction. It was more of a fringe thing. So women, looked for mates. They looked for the opportunity to pair bond. But yeah, it could be. So, MTV could be a lot of things. I think MTV totally shifted the tide. back then when it was real MTV, none of this new crap. You know, now we started seeing visuals of scantily clad women in, you know, concert videos. But before that, you couldn't really see that unless you got a nudie magazine or went to a strip club. And now it became mainstream. So I think you're right. Ali E., the women here in Austria are very demanding and want to be treated like princesses. And they're probably seeking money. Would that be correct? But they're probably very gorgeous. I would think that an Austrian woman is blonde, tall, and very attractive. Black Pill Neo, I learned all my knowledge about marriage and relationships from gents such as yourself. Thank you for your knowledge to a better life. Well, I'm glad that you did not end up in family court or have children alienated, because that is very difficult to handle. So remember the lessons you hear. We're just trying to help people vet correctly. And the reality is there's not a solid pool of quality relationships out there. It's as simple as that. Be safe. R says, so true, fasting is great. That's all I've done for 6 years, and work out and ride my bike. Keeps you healthy, keeps you looking younger, keeps you fit. And, you know, there's a reason why our, you know, past ancestors, you know, they had to fast because, you know, their meat didn't last forever. They might go 2-3 days without eating and then go find a big buffalo. So fasting is wonderful if you guys understand the advantages of it. Do Austrian women look like American chicks? Are they fat on average? I heard Austrian women look pretty and healthy. That's what I've heard. It's called hypergamy. Always been there with women, but social media has amplified it 10 times. Explains why women initiate divorce 75 to 90% of the time. Yes, 100%, Carl. Princess has 500 messages a day on social media, and she tries to sell morals here. Or they'll say, like, no one ever contacts me. I remember I went out with this one girl. I go, I bet you got 500 guys sent me. No one messages me. Yeah, right. The duality of human nature to me. Men and women both have duality, but women's is definitely different than men's. Yes. Logic versus emotion. Please don't be rude for me, no reason. I actually don't have a Facebook. I'm only on YouTube and Discord. I do not get daily messages. Yeah, let's keep it cool. One of my old friends with benefit left her Facebook open. I asked to check it, and she hurried to close it. I saw the message list. She knew she would be exposed as a juggler. My buddy's married, and his wife shuts down the phone. At the moment he walks in, he shuts it down. She shuts the phone down. They've been married 15 years. Timmy says, I went to many weddings in the 80s and 90s. I watched 80% of those guys get divorced. Great. It's everywhere. Cable TV was brand new. Microwaves were a new thing, and vinyl records were being replaced by cassette tape. I still got my box of cassettes, Lisa. We'll have to have a RAD reunion and bring my cassettes. And I got an old cassette player I got when I was 15, still works in the garage. In fact, I can plug my old iPhone, which has got the the jack, and I can play my iTunes through it. It's so great. Those they were made great. They were made great back then. We called them a ghetto blaster. I'd probably be like banned to say that now. Mysterio, how's life rocking for you today? Not too bad. Rode my bike earlier up the hill at 94 degrees, but I did it. Put some new pedals on. It's all good, brother. Hope you're well. Are you working today? I dated a woman fresh from Austria. She was very feminine, quiet, soft, slim, and let me lead. Later on, I found out she was seeing a plan B, C, D, and E guy. If she has a cell phone, it's over. Well said, FJT. Well said. Women have now been able to resolve themselves of any responsibilities. Men are still held accountable, and they build what they own. Women wait for the winners to latch onto. Truth in that, Carl. Truth in that. My husband has nerve damage. Fasting helps the pain in his nervous system reduce. Yes, it does. I also have issues with nerve damage and found that fasting helped me a lot with my pain. Hard dry fast would be very effective for both of you as well. Maybe a 48-hour one, if you can swing it. The amount of healing that comes from that is out of control. Mysterio, should one do a 48 intermittent fasting once a week? I think that would be great if you can get to that point. I've done it. What I do now is I do 224s, and I eat very little on those 2 days, but a lot of water, black coffee. And then once or twice a month, I'll do a hard dry fast for 24 hours, start at 10 in the morning till 10 the next day. And then throughout the week, I'll do a 16. From last night, I had nachos. I saw a band last night, but I had nachos and I haven't fasted. I probably won't fast till tomorrow, Wednesday through Friday. But yeah, if you can knock the sequence out, like if you did a 24 every day, your body get used to it. You go 24, then the next day 16, the next day nothing, get back on a 20, just mess around with that. Men and women are not held accountable at all. A man does not have to be a father. He can pay child support and never see his firstborn son, which I think is horrendous. But you're right. Both genders are allowed to be absolved of responsibility in different ways. Ain't that the truth? Brad, check out 5 Years of Freedom. I have. I watch his stuff. He's a businessman and has the most hilarious videos and titles. Yes, I've seen quite a few of his stuff. Maybe him and I should do something. That'd be a fun little event. Pussy is a drug. She is the dealer, and you buy it. I should have said peace leaf. It is. I mean, the men love a woman's anatomy. It's as simple as that. And beauty. It is a drug. If we had a group of women from 25 to 75 asked why women initiate divorce, what would you speculate their reason why their gender does that? I would say the majority would say that their husband became controlling and abusive, and mentally and emotionally abusive as well. That's what they all say. I can't tell you how many times I have heard that. They just got bored. They think there's a bigger, better option. Look, especially when you have kids, very, very few relationships last. Kids kind of disrupt a marriage. It's as simple as that. Your time and resources are spent taking care of little ones. It's going to have an effect on a relationship. And if it doesn't, and the only way to stop that is for both husband and wife to be committed to the relationship first and kids second. But it's hard. I feel like the 80 to 90s women were 20 to 30 were not as attention seeking. Yeah, I would agree. They didn't. It was a lot different. You could have more faithful relationships in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. Just the reality. There's a lot of women you can't trust. I have a 78 Harman Kardon. I had one of those. Love the old school UV meter. Still, I remember those. Oh, gosh. A lot of guys my age are buying older vehicles like in the 70s with those old tape decks and stuff because they don't want these these electrified cars that everything runs on a circuit board and a processor. They want to go back to just a battery and an alternator and, a V8. Throw in the old Harman Kardon or Blah Punk. Remember Blah Punk? That's what I had. I'm on vacation from the hospital. Patient transport will survive. Yes, it will, brother. How many fathers are excluded from their kids' lives because of the mother? A large majority. He's financially responsible, yet it was her choice to sleep with him. Women have over 14 BC options. Birth control. Yes, they do. It seems most women divorce after the first kid because their man is addicted to porn and thus is psychologically cold and detached. I don't know why any healthy marriage with men lusting after others. There's a reason. I've always said if the woman is sexually intimate with her man and shows appreciation and gives it up once or twice a week, I don't think that guy will go on board. I don't think he will. It's only when that doesn't occur. Just because porn exists out there, and there's some guys that probably look at it just because they're bored and then they get addicted. I get that, and they're married and they could get it. But I think for the most part, for the majority, if they're appreciated and shown love and given intimacy twice a week, that won't be a problem. Kratom helps nerve pain too. I've heard about Kratom. Don't know much about it. I thought they were going to try and ban it. What time of day do you like to bike? I like mid-evening, like 8 to 10. Depends how hot it is. So if it's hot, later in the evening. Sometimes I'll go in the day if I got stuff to do. Their dads that die to see their kids, and they are falsely barred by fake accusations of abuse. My dad was such a father. Yes. You know how hard it was to move out and not see your kid? You saw them every day of their lives for 16 years, and all of a sudden you see them half the time. You know how difficult that is? That's why I tell people to get involved and get married and have kids could be extremely risky. It breaks a man's heart when they don't see their kids. There's men on this channel that don't see their kids, that respond. They're alienated. It's extremely traumatic. Men take themselves out of this life because of it. Ghetto blasters were all over my junior high school the day John Lennon died in '80. Beatles songs played during passing periods and in the cafeteria at lunchtime. Yep, I remember that day. I was 8 years old, almost 9. I've been fasting and eating only one meal a day, says Cyberzoni. Good for you. It's awesome, awesome. There were a good amount of 304s back in the 80s and 90s, but now it's the overwhelming majority has become the norm and expected. That's another thing. Let's talk about that. In the 80s and 90s, there weren't a ton of them in our high school. I could have counted like 6. And most of these gals were pretty like stuck up and difficult, prude. But yeah, I think you're right. There were some, but not as many as today. Controlling and abusing are negative buzzwords that don't mean anything 80% of the time. Just to play out of the playbook. The girl back in the 80s always had to change just in case a date went bad and she had to use a phone in a booth. You're right. Remember the phone booths? Jeez. Space Ghost rocks. There you go. Things were different in the 90s, I would agree. Women had less makeup in the 80s and 90s. Yes, they did, but a lot of Aquanet. I know they had fashion magazines that had women and men all made up, but the normal people did not dress crazy. You are correct. John Boston's in the house. What's up, John? Good to see you. Ask John, how are the women in the 80s and 90s? I always thought they're much more simple to deal with. Relationships, as we're talking about, were easier to maintain. You could have a girlfriend for 12 to 18 months. And, you had to find creative things to do. You actually communicated. There wasn't a lot of options for women back then. There were options, but they weren't as apparent as they are today. Fat chicks and even ugly chicks knew their place in the day. I'll say it again. They knew where they were wanted. Sherwin Vega. Were you talking Chevy Vega, JT? Or Suzanne Vega? What is Sherwin Vega? I've never dated or met one woman who's taken accountability for the failure of the relationship. Always he was controlling, oppressive, emotionally abusive, never reflects at her end. It's funny, when I go on dates, I ask him, why did you get divorced? Oh, he was controlling and abusive, mentally, emotionally. Oh, okay. And what'd you do wrong? Nothing. I go, you know what you and I have in common? I'm sitting across from her. You know what you and I have in common? We're both failures in relationships. You know what? 8 out of 10 times they say, I wasn't a failure. It's so funny. Do you remember Alpine and Kenwood car stereos? R says, I do. My brother had an Alpine. I had a Blaupunkt in my Datsun, my 1969 4-door Datsun 510, a Blaupunkt. And he had to push the tape out. Actually, you had to push those 2 little buttons and it would pop the tape out. And then remember, you could listen to your tape and you didn't have to pull it out to listen to the other side. You hit a button and it reversed the other side. I thought that was cool. The relationships were never better in the past. They just have options now with online dating and more options because men these days are desperate. Women show their true nature now, says Harold Jarrah. Good to have you in the house. 100% correct, my brother. Some of the longest, happiest marriages I've seen are swingers. Well, maybe it's because maybe they're just not attached. They understand reality. You might be right. 2021 relationships might take no quick marriage or having kids. If anything, 3 years of solid dating, if it's in the card, if it's a bad bet. Seeing too many people burnt from starting quick relationships. Well said, Mysterio. I would agree with you 100%. Fake restraining orders ruin the father-child relationship, and women don't care. They don't. They don't care, John. I don't think what you said about porn is true. Younger men are much more depraved about it. Yes, younger men are. And are exposed to hardcore violent porn. Yes, they are. I'm talking about men my age. Marriages, not younger kids. And most women believe this. They're starting early. Yeah. I mean, porn is not good for young kids. They're finding it. It's not if a young boy, and I told my boy this when he was 12, I said, I asked him if he'd seen porn. He said, no. I said, it's not the fact you will see porn someday. And how are you going to deal with it? Because that can knock you off your game too. But I'm talking men in marriages. It's just easier to divorce. I don't approve, but I understand why women do it. Well, women, yeah, there are men that get addicted because they're bored and they look at porn. I get it. But there's also men that go to porn because they don't get anything. I've got friends whose women do not put out and they're on porn, and the woman's mad because they caught him on porn because she's not putting out. Now, that's a dynamic they need to fix between their marriage. But a lot of guys I know that are addicted to porn are because of that issue. I got into Zeppelin later. Do you remember when Bonzo died? The only major death at Rock Me was Stevie Ray Vaughan in 1990. Yes. There will be no more Led Zeppelin because John Bonzo Bonham died. Even Robert Plant said that. 98.5% of women that I've talked to or dated all told me that it was the guy's fault the relationship or marriage failed. FJT, given in a large percentage. I would have been 80%. But you're probably right. Women in the 80s and 90s pre-internet were way easier. Monkey branching ended up happening with guys you knew. Today, the monkey branch with men. They monkey all day. Today, they monkey branch with men all over. Absolutely. It was different back then. If they did monkey branch, it was there, but it was not easy to monkey branch. Right? You couldn't just do it in the palm of your hand. You couldn't do it while your partner was away. You'd actually have to go down and make a phone call. And remember the phone calls at the end of the month? You get a phone call that was like 100 pages thick with every phone number that was dialed. A lot harder, John. Believe it or not, I have most of my childhood friends in my life. I'm lucky that way, plus my dad, mom, and mother. There's nothing better than solid friendships, Mysterio. Good for you. I never cheated on my wife, stayed in shape, paid most bills, have a law degree, but she wasn't happy. Now see kids 6 days a month and pay $1,000 a month in child support. I'm lucky compared to other men. This is what we're talking about, gents. North-South story right here. I'm not happy. You're controlling and abusive. No. Those are just buzzwords that have been overly used. The reality, marriage is hard work. Marriage takes both people 150%. Did I give 150%? No. Could I have done better? Yes, I've talked about that. Could she have done better? Yes. Looking back, what could I have done different? What could she have done different? But my ex never took accountability. My ex would say I was controlling and abusive. She put it in the court records. So did mine. We should compare both our petitions for divorce, John. I bet they'd say the same thing. And you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. My attorney said, how can he control and abuse and pay for everything? I asked my attorney when I was going through this, and he's like, that's what they all say. Don't worry about it. And my attorney says, my wife says I'm controlling and abusive. And he's an attorney. Looks, money, and status, or if you ugly, you have to clown Max. Now that's funny. That's funny. Why do men technically die younger than women? When we technically can spread our seed wider and women can only birth one kid every 9 months? Very good question. I don't know how accurate and why men die younger. If they're married, maybe they're just bored. Maybe they want to check out. I think a lot of guys, my grandfather died at almost 104. He kept alive because he constantly studied and learned new things. Maybe men just get lazy and quit learning. Women are always learning the new fashion, the new makeup routines, the new how to get younger. So they're constantly learning. Could that be it? Lisa Smith, what do men in this chat think about prenups? Would your girlfriend sign one before you marry her? Good question. It's like all the divorce lawyers know how the game is played for women and more money for their client. Guys, it's all just a game. That's all it is. And it's a very emotional, violent, or mentally violent, biologically violent, and financially disastrous game that is played on the hearts and backs of both men and women. After being in a strip joint for an hour, I feel nothing. I remember I went to a strip club and I couldn't get into it. It was so weird. It was like most of the gals were whacked out on some sort of drug or alcohol drugged, and it was just like I couldn't just. They were like, I just didn't do anything for me. I remember Alpine and Kenwood, says T-Tox. I'm even old enough to remember Sparkomatic. I love the early 80s. There you go, brother. Kenwood speakers. I think I had Kenwood speakers in my Datsun 510 with a blah punk deck. Remember, they're called decks. I heard men's testosterone makes them more prone to heart problems, and most men are not as likely to look after their health as women in studies. So neglect of the body could be it. Well said. I think if we ban social media, ban porn, make marriage for the creation of children, make divorce harder and therapy easier to access, 90% of the problems with marriage will solve themselves. Definitely would be a good thing, but having that happen would be easier to catch a ride on a UFO at the corner of 7-Eleven and Taco Bell tonight. But we can all be optimistic. Alternative music like The Clash and The Smiths are only played on pirate radio stations in the 80s. Our first, Timmy Kramer, our first alternative station in Portland was on the AM radio. I think California only had the FM alternative stations. That was crazy, but you're right. You are 100% correct. However, all her lies blew up on her, and the lies came out. All my ex got was robbed by her attorneys. You know what? If you're gonna talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk, right? And it goes for exes. Good for her, but she's probably still blaming Mr. John. And the court was rigged against her. If you had to speculate, what should the human lifespan be? For me, I say late 80s at best. I think 80 to 85 is when you should go out. I think your body, it depends on how healthy you are, but your body begins to break down and you just become a liability. Dudes are out here simping, whether they're getting the peace leave or not. Both sad and disgusted. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Migta, absolutely. Nowadays, girl texting with multiple guys, so it makes hard for her to pair bond. Truth, Renaija One. Truth. Fefe Salcero, and yet women get sick more and tend to have more chronic health problems, including mental health issues. Women do get sick. The amount of money, I'm in healthcare, the amount of money to take care of an aging woman is about 4 times as much as taking care of an aging man. So you are right about that. Interesting that women utilize healthcare far more than men, yet insurance companies can't charge them differently. Auto insurance, nope. Men get, isn't that interesting? Very well said, Carl. My boy pays more to drive a car than a woman. Where's the discriminatory? Makes perfect sense. I like when Coach Greg says, I'm not happy. I know, that's funny. Then I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Oh, he's funny. Oh my gosh, that dude is so funny. He's calling them gumps now. I think one thing my father told me when I was younger, your happiness is not the duty of anybody. Joy is the emotion of madmen and reprobates. Stiff upper lip, you don't have to be happy, you have to survive. You had a very strong role model for a father, Ghost Princess. My dad told me that stiff upper lip thing, I was in trouble for arguing. That is a good father. Happy life in the house. I think all women are queens. Y'all just hate women. Let's go feminism. We don't hate women here. We understand women. The other day you said that things take time, like gaining money and staying lean and healthy. Why should relationship not be the same? They need routine maintenance just like the rest of life. Well said, Mysterio. Well said. 100% agree with that comment. I think good fathers save the minds of children and good mothers secure the emotions and heart in a healthy place. If only we could go back to Little House on the Prairie with Ma and Pa Ingalls, where Pa was a great dad and Ma was a great mom. Controlling and abusive is the first sentence in the attorney boilerplate. I've got to read that. I'm going to read that one day if I can find it. Oh my gosh. JT, flexing some muscles. Prenups won't do anything. They can be ripped apart just like wills. I'd agree. I've seen women who should be in jail, but the attorneys present them as victims. Crocodile tears do have their place in court. John, prenups are a scam. Don't do a prenup. They don't work anymore. I would agree. Just kidding about pro-feminism. I know. Why do you think OJ was obsessed with Nicole? She was pretty, but not some goddess. The fear of her being with a man, another man that wasn't him. That is what happened. The rejection, she rejected him, and that destroyed his psyche. Him thinking about another man on top of her probably drove him absolutely nuts. That's why. The emotional, what happens, I mean, men go nuts when they find out the woman has another boyfriend. There's multiple murders that happen because men aren't controlling their emotions. Yeah, that's why. To hell with marriage altogether. A prenup can get thrown out easily. It's at the judge's discretion, mood, moral compass. A judge can throw any goddamn thing he wants out. Guys, I've been in front of a judge for 29 months. It went in our favor. But they can throw any of that shit out. They could say the woman signed it under duress. Look at Dr. Dre's wife. She's trying to get that damn thing thrown out, and that was probably ironclad, and probably spent $10 million just writing the stupid thing up. Ghost Princess Father provide logic, support, rationality, and parameters. Women provide nurturing. And with the state of women today, look at how single mothers are faring with their talents. What talent? There's very little talent today than the 80s and 90s. Right? Orbs in skies around stars lately, says North South. Yes, lots of UFOs. Tape decks with those detachable face plates. I had my blah punk with a detachable. Very cool. Remember Jensen speakers? I do very well. Breaks my heart. I worked at a daycare, and one single mom constantly complained she had no money but would go out drinking every weekend and was drunk in front of kids. I hate daycare. And she probably had the latest and greatest iPhone, which is another. If you have no money, why do you have a $1,200 phone? Doesn't make sense, Ghost Princess. I spoke to a priest I know, and he said they need to make barriers higher to get married and make divorce much easier of a process. If they flipped it around, maybe something would change, right, John? But I hate that lifestyle she led more. Emails. Yeah. No money, but is always drinking. How did you and your ex work the finances in your marriage? Put into a joint account for the house. It was a joint account. I paid for everything. She had her own account. She from her earnings, and then she would buy, kid stuff. She contributed, but I was always on I always paid for everything because I'm a man. I'm a provider. That's what I take pride in doing, providing for my family. And she was pretty good with money. She didn't overspend. It was a good quality about her. So many examples. It's ridiculous. I started presenting these to my ex, and she translated into I was attacking her and hate women. Well, that's just the easy road. That's the easy road, Carl. You hate women. Why would you want half of the money? You hate me. I had a woman texting me. She kept calling me Paul, and I went along with it. Good for you. Play along with it. Did he ever explain why divorce should be easier? Because originally divorce was only for adultery due to the unforgiving nature of humanity. You're right. Divorce was, you had to prove divorce pre-1969. You had to prove unhappiness, which you can't prove. Kick-ass subject and stream today, says Timmy. Thanks, brother. Always appreciate your comments and everybody else's. None of the people that I went to school with are with their high school sweethearts. There's still a couple I know. Still a couple. And they're still in love. It's weird. Sounds like my ex and her sister. It sounds like everybody. Relationships. Father Saunders presenting. We're actually making an appearance. Good to have you, brother. In the 80s and 90s versus 2021, you could have them. You could have them versus now. You cannot. Correct. What's funny is I'm actually serious unless you want a potential charge for simply approaching nowadays. You got to let them approach you, or at least give you a sign. You're right, 100%, Father Saunders. I think you're what, 40, 41, 42? A few years behind me. Romantic love will not work for life. If anything, it has to be a mix of friendship, romance. I think the only way a relationship, you got to throw the romance crap out. The dopamine, the serotonin, the in-love. That's going to fall apart real quick. You have to get together because you want to be with each other to build a companionship, a friendship, and then that has romance. If you built it based on romance, it's risky. That's what I'm going to say. Well said, Mr. Some people get upset that divorce was not granted for men who beat their wives, but historically, a lot of bad husbands were sewn into bed sheets and moved with fireplace drives. No? Go figure. People were tougher in the old days. And you know what? There's a lot of douchebag guys out there. Okay? There's a lot of dicks, bad men, as there are bad women. But the majority, okay, of relationships are very risky in today's world. So I don't give a pass because the guy has a penis. I give a pass for good quality people that want to work it out and take responsibility and accountability. That's what we're after. Accountability on both sides. He said divorce should not be dragged out and the kids used as pawns in the court. He said divorce is a very selfish thing, extremely selfish, especially with kids involved. I don't want shiesty demon in the house. I don't know one marriage that has lasted. If it has, they're just together for the kids or dependents. And they're still divorced. It's just not physical. Men are so simple to keep happy. I would agree. We're very simple. Very easy formula. Family courts really make it a nightmare. If the church grants the marriage, then the church should grant the divorce. Well, I would agree. The state should not be involved in the bedroom. Beating someone is a terrible thing. People need to be not together when that happens. I would agree. You know, the Stella Streetcar Named Desire with Marlon Brando. That's what she's talking about. Those kind of violent relationships. Watch that movie, A Streetcar Named Desire, with Marlon Brando. What is your definition of operant power? That you are God of your creation and your reality. In other words, you read the Bible, God is within you. God is closer than your hands and feet. You create your reality with your imagination, with what's in your projector, which is right here. What film are you rolling today in your head? Is it a film of abundance mindset or is it a film of victim status? That is how we are the operant power. We can't control our thoughts, but we can choose which thoughts we will obey. That's it. That's what I mean. Alpine deck and Rockford Fosgate, breaking it down. Before that, tape deck with auto side switch also in the house. There you go, brother. Like, why is the state even involved? Because it makes money. And it makes men's indentured servants to the state. Even Charles Ingalls taught his wife Carolyn how to fire a rifle. Charles Michael Landon, what a good dude. We watched that show all the time with Willie and Nellie and Albert and Laura and what was it, Sarah? Remember was it Sarah's that she became blind? Her husband that she married was Percival. And I'll tell you a quick something if you guys are still listening. So one episode on Little House on the Prairie, Sarah was blind and they opened this blind school and Percival comes and Percival is not blind. And Percival is like, no, Percival married Nellie, sorry. Nellie was the daughter of Nels, the grocery store guy. And Nellie was taller than Percival. Percival was this Jewish guy that came from back east. And he shows up and Nellie says, "You're short and you're Jewish." But they ended up getting married. I remember that. Church grants the marriages and the courts create a disaster on the way out, 100%. Men are so simple to keep happy, and men have a myriad of checklists to keep their women happy, yet men are the ones who are controlling. Isn't that funny? Give them 100%, they don't like you because you're now a simp. Give them nothing, and now they hate you. It's tough for the majority of women. Jacob's in the house. Thank you for providing hope in difficult times. All the best from Denmark. The best to you, my friend. Keep in touch. If you ever need any help, give me and this goes for anybody, rebelagainstdefeat@gmail.com. I agree completely. I'm just saying that things were different on the frontier. People did not have the resources and thus had to resort to extremes. People had to survive by combining assets and resources and faith in each other. That's how people survived. They didn't survive on love. What's your ex's response to your fair one in your divorce? Did she try to contest it? She accepted it. First thing she said was she thought that the courts were not in favor of women. 50-50, I think, is fair to everybody. A buddy of mine had 2 18-inch Lancer on a box in the back of his Blazer. Pump and bass, brother. When my ex delayed the divorce and dragged it out, I told her to finish the divorce and go jump on the carousel and find someone else to pay her bills and ruin his life too. John, laying it down to Chinatown with the ex. When couples were physically fighting, most of the time in the old days, the woman would move to her parents' house, but divorce was typically not permitted. You're right. And then she'd go back. The guy would simp for her to come back. How savvy was your grandfather with tech? Not savvy at all. He read books, and he read the Bible all the time. Like a boss, lays it down, John Boston. And so physical retaliation from women was often very normal. People have this weird idea that women are defenseless. Women hit too, man. Women will hit. My women would, not hard, but she'd get all mad. I took it like a man, but still. Who do you think you would hang with more? Captain Kirk or Spock or Luke and Han? I think Luke and Han. So before divorce permitted for a man beating his wife, the woman would often organize, sew him into bed sheets, and beat his ass with sticks. Dang, dude, that was back in the days, the frontier days. Back in the 80s and 90s, people had to go out to find new people. Now a smorgasbord is delivered straight to their palms, right in their fingers. The finger is the new phone book. Instead of flipping through pages, they just flip through apps. Still in love because your high school friend's pair bond? Probably, yeah. They don't have to deal with dating in this shit show. But I know a lot of their friends are getting divorced, which is not a good thing for relationships because people see what their friends do. And I find those historic accounts so jarring. It really pulls that fake women are defenseless thing away. Women may be outmatched, but they are not stupid. You're right. Shayan Raj, good to see you, brother. I heard Greg Adams talk about creating value. How do I create value and respect for myself in a way that brings balance to my life? You put yourself center. You seek the validation of yourself only, and you build something that you can leave as a legacy that brings you pride and joy. The moment you put something in front of you and on the pedestal, the moment you lose respect for yourself. And you accept it, you say to yourself, I respect myself and I'll do whatever it takes to live a life of respect and integrity. Hope that helps. I don't have any experiences seeing women get beat up. The horrible divorces I've seen, there's no physical abuse. People who physically fight, that's bad for kids, 100%. You touch anybody, whether a woman touches a man or a man touches a woman, is horrible. I think the responsible thing to do when things get physical is just to leave and move into your parents and start organizing a civil separation. You're right. You got to be safe. I would agree. Domestic violence is a big thing. I'm almost 42. There was also no hookup culture in the 90s in my era. 3 months was the norm before sex was initiated at all, and you had to put that time in for sure. I would say 6 months, man. It was, I had to court my ex-wife. It was, you worked for it. There was commitment. It was a solid commitment. Now it's not. Well said, Father Saunders. All men and women born between 60 and 2000 all have to be very careful with who they have kids with. You got it. Ubermensch is in the house. Good to see you, brother. Women have to invest next to nothing in their dealings, and I'm doing the same. Simps are the one that are thirsting and investing everything. But today's modern world, back in the 80s and 90s, they had to invest in themselves, but they also, there is also, they were still sought by men, right? But they were also more adept to being with one man back in especially when I grew up. Asking women to take accountability is like asking the black community to reflect and ask what they can do to make their situation better. Blame shifting is just easier. It's easier to be a victim, guy, right? It's so easy to be a victim. Right, if you say that the state should not be involved with marriage, then current liberalism is the control of the state of marriage. Liberalism is a mental disorder, Mysterio. You're absolutely right. Slam cave in the house. Back then, you had to work because the options were not as much today. Social media and apps has caused a huge divide between men and women. Watch action, not words, for both sexes. Well said. Well said, Slam Cave. There were less options. There's still option, but not as much. Not as much. It's out of control today. If divorce makes men indentured servants to the state, then it can be observed, but the state makes women into breeding cattle with welfare programs, breeding cattle for more indentured servants. That is how it's going. FJT, imagine if all single men went monk mode for a month or two to protest against the system. In my opinion, I think laws would change really quick, but unfortunately, most men could never do that. I've thought about that too. What would happen? Right? A nation, a 3-month protest by men. I bet we'd see some change. Or we'd wake people up. FJT. I watched Little P. I did not like Mrs. Olsen, who was a Karen. Yes, she was a Karen. Her husband was a total beta. Nails. Even back then, I thought they were off. I can't see why Mr. Olsen was into her. Classic simp. He was the opposite of Mr. Ingalls. I still have my Technic speaker from the 80s. They sound great. Cyberzoni, awesome, brother. Technics, I remember those guys. 100 years ago, there was no such thing as stress leave for either sex. You just manned up or womaned up. Simple as that. Cowboy or cowgirled up. People had to eat and survive back in the day. Now the new line for the last 30 years, I'm bored. Technology has been a nightmare as well. It's made people slaved into boredom. People can just sit in their house all weekend, and then they get bored. How long do you think paid maternity should be? 3 months. No, I don't know. 6 weeks. That's how it was when we had kids. A man today can win. He stays single, saves his money, and keeps his mind active. Life is about having many options to enjoy. Well said, Timmy. If they changed the laws that made men the beneficiaries from a divorce, you wouldn't see 50% of the divorces that you see today. And it would put those attorneys and courts out of business. Yeah, courts are business because of divorce. It employs a lot of people. Right, John? Going monk is pretty easy once you are pushing 60. Lower testosterone levels really helps. Lower testosterone level really helps. There you go. Aaron from Hawaii. 80s and 90s was one of the best times. No cell phone, no Facebook. Even the movies was better. 100%. Top Gun, Days of Thunder. Great movies back then. Great stuff. Finger is the new phone book, no doubt about it. Damn right. Did you ever watch Miami Vice? Hell yeah. Great show. I think the men on here all need a written game plan on their hobbies and what they want to do in 3 years. Well said, Timmy, or Mysterio. Absolutely. We've got to be committed to the cause. Remember the old phone books and yellow pages? Every now and again I'll get a phone book. The thing is like 8 pages long, though. I mean, they got to get out of the business. Nobody uses them anymore, except the older generation. What does it mean when a couple says they grew apart and they have young kids? It means they didn't put the effort into fixing their relationship when kids came involved, or they got bored. Hypothetically speaking, if they change the laws tomorrow, I don't think laws would really be changed. There would still be loopholes to extract money somehow, some way. FJT is right about that. Official CPA, check it in. Good to have you, brother. Today, there are 0 women who are single after the age of 30 who can pair bond due to the carousel. With social media and hive mind thinking, if a man makes one mistake despite hers, he's out. Well said. So why do we invest in relationships? Risky. The rewards are potentially slim to none. My ex-father-in-law said to me, "You're a good guy. She's going to make you miserable like her mother made me." My father-in-law died, but I bet he would have said something like that. Quite risky. Ingalls was alpha without being heavy-handed about it. Damn right he was. He was a good, solid, old-fashioned patriarch. I vaguely recall cartoons teaching the Christian values like love, chastity, courage, and stuff like that. There were a list of set virtues that were taught in a show called Book of Virtues. Yeah. Those are from the early 2000s. A forgotten time indeed. It's simply not worth playing the game today. Who wants to sign a one-sided contract? And that's what it is, Carl. If a girl goes for more than 2 days, you know she's entertaining others. Yes, she does. Was interracial dating forbidden back then, or people didn't care? I don't know. Good question. And there was like people in my high school, black guys that had the hot white girls, and I don't think anybody cared. Maybe in some parts of the world, in the U.S. and other areas. Which lawyers are making the most coin? Criminal, divorce? Every man should watch Divorce Court. Yep. The Red Pill, and read Florence Nightingale and Esther Pilar. Florence Nightingale, the very first nurse. One of the very first nurses, right? I don't think anybody should get legally married, but it seems the state anticipated the reaction from religious people and made the trap of common law marriage, which is just a stupid idea. There you go. They made people living together into marriage. The state did that. So the state could pull a lot of shenanigans, right? Why would my buddy's fiance, ex-husband, who she is still married to, want to stay married to her legally, even though there is no strife over the house they share? Good question. Maybe doesn't want to. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to feel the rejection, right? He doesn't want to feel the loss that he lost. You know, I've noticed a phenomenon, Rad. In my area, most married people get married in the church out here in the wilderness, but they don't get legally married. Well, I think there's value in getting spiritually married through your church. Why does it have to be with the state? The only thing it does in the state is it just allows you to have a better tax deduction. Other than that, what benefits do the state provide for married couple outside of, your tax status? Additionally, they don't use hospitals, they use midwives, so the state has no idea there are children with them. Some of these Christian families have up to 30 kids, whole families opting out of society. Whatever makes them have peace and away from the hands and the prongs of the state, the tentacles. When did you feel like America lost its value due to extreme liberalism? Probably mid-90s. I think when Clinton got in. See you later, Lisa. What percentage of girls are not drinking lots of alcohol, not doing record? Jeez. If you can tell me a percentage that's lower than 90%, I'd be surprised. Especially over 18. But you know what? A drug could be social media as well. Clark, good to have you. Are you still planning to move out of the country, Rad? I'm still planning to live and to have an experience living in a foreign country. It's not because I want to get out of my country. It's because I want the experience of living again in Mexico or Colombia or Panama. Simple as that. Just to enjoy life for a little bit. Who knows? I'll probably come back. But just to have that experience. Maybe 3 to 5 years. If I like it, I stay. If I don't, I go back. People go, "You're just running away." I'm not running away. I'm choosing a life that I love to speak Spanish. I love the Latin culture. And I want to live on the coast. Right? Have fun. It's interesting. There are so many stats that show the negative effects on children without the father in the life. Yet the mainstream media ignore this and only focus on how divorce impacts women. I wonder why. Because the media is liberal. Right, Carl? Liberals. Colorado Millsap in the house. If you must get married, keep all assets as separate as possible. Separate bank accounts, cars, houses. Little headache when it goes down the crapper. I say The only way I think a marriage could work is if I'm 70, 75, and I want a companion because all my friends are dead. And it's not even that I wouldn't even get married, but it's just, and she would have to live in a separate house and have her separate income and not change her name. And we just got married for the benefits of, I don't think we get married. We just act like we're married. But you're right. Keep it very off the beaten path. Most of these families will undoubtedly be painted as weirdos by the media. Of course they are, because they're not normal. The wilderness is great, Ghost Princess. Jefe Salcero agrees with Rad. Yeah, mid-90s, especially with Clinton. Are you going to do another bike ride today? No, I did one this morning at 10 in 94-degree heat. Saw a couple snakes saw 2 rattlesnakes and a milk snake. Those rattlesnakes scare the crap out of me, man. You get bit by one, you know how much it cost you? Just in healthcare, you probably know this, Mysterio. There's only one company that makes rattlesnake venom. Costs $100,000 for a vial of venom. You need about 3 to 5 vials of venom if you get bit by a snake. Rattlesnake bites are extremely rare, but if you do get bit, you're dead in 24 hours if you do not get venom. If I have one fear in life, it is a wolverine or a rattlesnake. And I hate snakes. Oh, hold on. How do I move out of the country? I want to get out. I'm 20 years. When I graduate, I want to move to Spain. Go get your teaching English as a second language license and go. That's the quickest way. Take you 3 months, whatever. Go to Colombia. Go to Southeast Asia, South Korea, Thailand. That's the quickest way. You'll do very well. No such thing as monk mode around Colombian women, FJT. Oh, they're gorgeous, aren't they? Especially the ones that have caramel skin and green eyes. With social media being a drug tool, I view 99% of women as drug addicts. F that, says Card Tyra. You know, it's just safer. Just safer to keep yourself on purpose. I know this girl with a bus pass and possibly a pack of Twizzlers. She wanted to come over to my place and ask me what to do. I have what I do. I have in the house to drink. Turns out she was a whiskey drinker. Jeez. Okay. I have a rule of thumb. If they're into whiskey a lot, that is a red flag and you should walk away. Even the 1% virgin unicorn can be corrupted in the wrong environment. You're 100% right, brother. We're 100% right. Are snakes evil? I don't like snakes, Mysterio. Ugh. I like the northern wilderness, no snakes in Alaskan wilds. And everybody's so American here that you can hear the Liberty Bells ring. What part of Alaska are you in? Because I love Anchorage and Girdwood. I'm sure it was different in the 80s and 90s, but being a young guy, the main change for me was Snapchat. Oh, I would agree. Good call. Especially with my kids. Before Snapchat, you could at least trust a girl a little more. Yeah, what's the deal with like, hey, find me on Snapchat. Here's my Snap code. So dumb. They don't even talk on the phone. What do you think the real Jesus was like? Compassionate, caring. Do you meditate? I have, but I find my thoughts sometimes can really, they're hard to control. Move to Portugal instead of Spain? Yes, they say Portugal is much more cheaper. Better government policies in Portugal versus Spain. Interesting. Mr. Big or Kit Kat? I gotta go Kit Kat. Mr. Big if I'm in Canada. For me as a young guy, it was that when the direct message feature on Instagram came out, gave people too much access. If you want to get a hold of them, it's crazy. There you go. Which gender is more likely to be a virgin, men or women? Men. Easy one. Colombian and Brazilians, natural top tier fat and money and ass. Gotta love it. Latina women are attractive women. I won't deny that. How long until Grubhub or DoorDash delivers the hooksters? Ash Dash or Poo. That might be coming. That might be coming. Colorado Milser. We're north of Wasilla and Palmer. I've been up there with Sarah. Sarah lives up in Palmer. I remember there was a place on the left. There was a big, I went out hiking in it right before Palmer. It's great. It's like Anchorage. It's like, what, 40 or 45 minutes away. But without all the problems, the murder rate is 0%. Everybody is safe, and pedophiles get eaten by bears. I remember when I was in Anchorage, I went to that bar, Humpty's, and I walked in, there's 400 beers on tap, and the guys were in their flannels and beards, and they do not like outsiders, especially government outsiders. So you're right. Pedophiles get eaten by bears. Good for them. Good for them. Too bad. And didn't Dexter move up to Alaska after the show ended? The thing is, Jefe Salcero, I love Spanish and I speak it. I don't want to learn Portuguese. Official CPA, go get your ass to Colombia. Get a teaching second language and go down there. You'll make good money and have a great experience. Met another woman, 45, single, some goldfish, and a case of cheap wine in the kitchen. What kind of wine? Was it Boda Box, the bougie wine box, or was it Francia? That will tell you a lot. Speaking of Colombian women, I was practicing Spanish with one. She tells me in Spanish, yes, I'm married, but that doesn't matter. Soy casada. Did she say estoy casada or soy casada? Because now it seems like estoy casada is the main thing, because they're only married for a temporal amount of time. My kid, he got marked down for that in Spanish class. I go, you know what? I'm going to call the Spanish teacher, because you can say estoy casada or estoy casado now, because really marriage is temporary. Or you could probably say estoy chico, because now you can change into a woman. Right? FJT? That's funny. Men and women can never be viewed the same when it comes to dating. Women have the fun in early life, men later, and if both had to take a time machine back to their life, it's women going back. Well said. If we want to take out, we just drive a few hours to Wazilla and get some. It's fantastic. We have the deep forest and wilderness and luxury of a crime-free small city. It's epic. And you got the Northern Lights with the queerest sights, the queerest I ever did see. I also went out to the first dog mush run. That was kind of cool. Relationships are a joke. Women drive like dog shit. Oh my gosh. That is a funny handle. Relationships are very risky and with very little reward. Why do you think women graduate at college at higher rates than men do? What's the reason for this? Because men are realizing that getting in relationships and taking care of women, they don't want to go to school anymore and do something stupid. Maybe they go into construction. They're realizing they're 63% of all college students are women. So you're seeing that. Men are waking up. Rival Son blew the roof off of their stream of their first album. I'll have to check that out. Nothing like finding chicks with a ridiculous natural body. Rad, you told us you lived in another country. Tell us when you first moved to one and why. What was your experience? Venezuela, 1991. Amazing. It's an amazing experience. Learn Spanish in the streets. Learn to be independent at a young age. And love the culture and the food. Never got over it. Pepe Salcero, be careful with the Latinas, especially Colombians and Puerto Ricanas. They can be temperamental and can become physically aggressive. I'm a friend of mine married a Puerto Rican, and you're absolutely right. Led Zeppelin 2 or In Through the Outdoor? Number 2, my friend. You think you have a unicorn, and a few years later you find out you have a jackass. I'm going to say Love, Mysterio. My favorite album. Lots of women driving Uber and Postmates. Let's work them hard. No tips. Louis L'Amour. Sutter Home. White Symphony. There you go. White Zin. Couldn't even do the Pinot Grigio. One thing that does suck about Alaska, it's not a super bad thing. There are fewer women in this area and mostly men. It's hard for me to find female friends that are not leftists, but oh well. Yeah, probably. I like bears more than friends. That was funny what you said. We should start Uber backseats, ride and play in an all-trip. That's funny stuff, guys. Taylor the Famed has a good YouTube video on how escorts are stating why men aren't dating or entering into relationships. Seems to me like they know. Of course they would know. No drama. and they get a good product. I traveled around Central and South America in the 90s, went in the U.S. Air Force. Brothels were cheap, so was the beer. All single guys should do a trip down there. Love me some Latin culture. So does FJT, Colorado. I'm afraid to go to Colombia, not because of my safety. I will damage too much beastly down there. You'll be fine in Colombia. Stay out of Bogota. You want to go to Cali. Or, Cartagena is cool. A little, too many Americans. But if you go to Santa Marta, Bucaramanga, Medellin's cool. If you're off outside of Medellin, like in downtown Medellin where all the expats are, I wouldn't go there. So I can focus on my career. Oh, I know that little soundbite with that gal. She was so annoying too. I see Latina women beating up their husbands in public. I've seen that. I recently taught adults online for 2 years that foreign women are always more polite than American women. Wonder why? Entitlement, Clark. Entitlement. I think that more women are leftist than men. Even Republican women take on leftist talking points and don't seem to be aware of it. The brainwash is real. I think media is censoring conservative view plays. Well, if you're conservative, you're toxic and you're a bigot and you're misogynist and everything else. It's as simple as that. If you're a liberal, you're godsend. Colorado, thank you for your service. Yes, absolutely to him. Wish I could hear some stories. I dated Latinas, and I agree they're crazy. My Latina ex used to ride past my house to spy on me. I'd love to hear a video of you. Well, actually, you did that video, FJT, when you broke up with that chick and told her to quit calling you. I'd love to hear how you break up with him. Foreign women are given a classical education and taught more traditional roles. I always tell people to work on self-improvement and be open-minded to wedding a foreigner. Well said. I live in Massachusetts. Women are way more liberal than men, and they support Democrats and libs who support them with a nonsense belief to believe all women. Geez, the Duluth model. Costa Rica has plenty of affordable Colombian rentals to satisfy a guy with needs, says Jefe Salcero. You're damn right. If a man is a liberal, he's a woman. And begin. 100%. A man that's a liberal is a victim mindseted man who is a feminine. He was a man, an emasculated man. Real men are conservative or libertarian. If you're dating American women in 2021, you need to evaluate your life. Not a lot of good ones out there. Same thing here. Isn't that creepy? In every single state, in every single town, hive mind, liberal hive mind. It's like a damn Borg. I don't know why liberalism is so great. It doesn't help. It destroys societies. Stay tuned, Rat. I have so many stories to tell. I'm just getting started. Awesome. Princess, I like the average I think the average Democrat woman from 1990 would be considered a Republican these days. I would agree with that. They have feminine tendencies. 100% of this is true. It may piss people off, but you're totally right. A liberal man is a victim. A strong man takes accountability. It's the difference. Why do women, the liberal women, want to date liberal men? They're dating women with penises. Ghost Princesses in Alaska, John. I love the sound clip CJ uses from the past, all women who said women want nice guys, and that's you. That's a funny one too. The liberal men I know are the ones who never had kids or their wife left them. Isn't that funny? If a man is a liberal, he is a lost cause. I can't stand liberal men. They're victims. Simple as that. I told my boys that. And my boys are very conservative. I said, if there's a guy that's a liberal, he argues, he's aggressive, he's victim-minded, he seeks to blame, he's microaggressive, he can't think for himself, he follows the hive mind, and nothing there says he's strong. Why do women want liberal men? Very polite women from all different areas. You're right, but I think the same thing about Republican men. In 95, Democrat men were talking like, yeah, I agree, it's flipped. And that's you. The whole story is amazing. You ever see the guy that get tattoos of their wife, girlfriend names? Ever see the tattoo ring too? Oh, geez, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Go look on Tinder. Are flaming liberals. Vote, swipe left if you vote for. I got asked if I vote for Trump last week. I said, hell yeah, I did. And here's the picture of the screenshot of my ballot. She called me today. There you go. Top 5 presidents of all time, of your lifetime. Reagan. Trump. Bush. Although Bush was quacky. That's all I remember. I mean, Clinton was way better than what we have today, you know. But he was still a dipshit. It's mostly liberal women in Alaska. If a woman's father's a liberal, you know who wears the pants? Damn right. I was on a men's team that had men who were upset that Trump beat Hillary. God damn it. I'd love to punch every one of them in the face. I said to them, what is wrong with you? Men do not wake up and say, we need a woman to lead us. They think by being liberal, they'll get more attention from women. And women, I've been with ultra flaming feminist liberals, and they still text me today. And they know exactly where I stand, what I shoot in my off days, where I like to, who I vote for, why I hate the government that runs, why I think the government is useless. And they still text me today because they don't like liberal men. It's a narrative they run, but you're 100% right, John. My dad got a tattoo of my stepmom, his third wife, on his arm. And when she left him, he covered with a black widow. He laid it down to Chinatown on his arm. It pissed her off so much. Good for him. I would throw in JFK. Well, I think JFK was a very conservative Democrat. He was probably more Republican than they were in the 80s. He also tried to get some things he tried to get the Fed to deal with the Fed. And he was taken out for a reason, guys. Got off Instagram to focus on my life to make it great, taking some things from the 90s and applying it. Gonna have women leave me erotic voicemail. There you go. Brad, I kept the pic of my ballot. Reagan was a good president. Yeah, he was. I remember when he got shot with him and who was that guy, James somebody? His vice president or chief of staff? I did not have relations with that woman. Nomad John in the house. Being a liberal versus conservatives goes far beyond politics. Social dynamics as well. Women gladly sacrifice freedom for security because they won't fight for freedom, but will whine about it not being provided security. Big Daddy government fills that role. Didn't Thomas Jefferson say the government should fear the people, not the people should fear the government? Boy, how we've changed as a society. JFK won because of ballot box stuffing in Chicago. Same thing we saw in this election. Democrats are worse than the mob. As a young guy, how was Reagan life? Very conservative. He brought the country back from a shit show. I agree. Some of what? When the men fail to force each other to be fathers, the state becomes the father and the husband. Is that correct? Guys, you guys have been great. It's been a good stream. The 80s was a very different world we lived in. Women were more committed. They still had options, but you could maintain a relationship. Guys, go have fun, and women, have fun as well. Let's rebel against defeat. Chase excellence, masculinity, men first.